Thank you, Datuk Seri Anwar. I would now like to invite back on stage SMU Chairman, Mr. Ho Kwon Peng. Mr. Ho, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now opening the question and answer session. Please identify yourself and the organization that you are from before posing your question. At this time, I would also like to bring your attention to the screen for the event code for the Pigeonhole system. And over to you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I must say that I hope that after this, my book sales will go up by a lot more. It's been very kind of you. I've never been quoted by a Prime Minister in waiting together with so many other famous world poets and so on. In fact, I was going to say that one of the questions we had posed you earlier at the Singapore Summit was, what did you do to while away your time in prison for all these years? I think we can see now, no other politician could quote from so many other writers, poets, thinkers, and I noticed even some of the poets that you quoted were actually from memory, not from your script. So that's certainly what imprisonment has done to Datuk Anwar. I must say, I was detained, as we were saying, for a shorter period of time. So I never had time to learn all these quotes and so on, but I did very well in my university exams that year because I had nothing to do but just read. So I suppose Datuk Anwar and myself would recommend detention for those who want to be learned people. The first question I wanted to ask you, sir, was one which takes a bit off from when you were with us last week. And you were very kind to say to that audience there that the first thing you would do when you became Prime Minister would be to actually visit Singapore. We were very grateful for that. You also remember that in a private session we were chatting with the ASM Go about the history of Singapore-Malaysia relations and how they've been fraught by tensions. And we discussed about LKY and Mahathir. And we asked you your view, and you answered it in one word. You said, Mahathir. Do you remember that? That was supposed to say it all. What I'm going to be asking you is that we don't want to, in the future, if Singapore-Malaysia relations get a little bit tense, we don't want in Singapore to say, Anwar. So what I wanted to ask you is, given the history of Singapore-Malaysia relations and your very long involvement in that in your entire period of leadership as a minister, and even before that, given that we are really so close and yet have tensions, I wanted to ask you, in your mind, what do you think would be the key problematic areas between Singapore and Malaysia that have irked us on both sides for all these years? And what would you do as Prime Minister to hopefully diffuse these tensions so that really Singapore-Malaysia relations can have a very long period of very warm relations?
Thank you. Lesson number one, never quote an author who's present. Then you tend to hear long questions. Okay, reference to reading is interesting. I don't really read because when I was in prison, when I was in school, I watched this great movie by this two renowned actor and actresses, Warren Beatty and Natalie Wood, Splendor in the Grass. The staff would know that, students wouldn't know. And then I watched Natalie Wood, which is my great hero in those days, reading from Wordsworth. Then, what though the radiance which was once so bright be forever taken from my sight? The glory that was once in the flower, the splendor in the grass. It's a love poem. You know that, so don't take me too seriously, this thing. I do relax and enjoy. And I was having a dialogue with the young students last week in Kuala Lumpur. They asked me about my favorite song. I can't tell them about Nat King Cole or Elvis Presley or the Beatles. So I said, Adele, All I Ask. Do you know?
No.
You see, I asked, I think 99% of the audience, which are, senior leaders, nobody knew. So how do you interact with the young guys? You don't know Sam Smith or Adele, whatever. Okay. That's just now to the most serious question. Of course, Singapore is our immediate neighbor. I go to Johor Bahru, then cross to Singapore. This is my first visit. Shouldn't be problematic. But more important is we have a long historical ties, cultural, and of course economic and trade. I am, although you can hear my idealism, principles, and etc., but I mean well for my country, and I think Malaysia would benefit immensely with its excellent bilateral relations with Singapore, and vice versa. You have stability, you don't have problems, you don't distrust each other, and I think this is certainly the spirit that we should aspire to achieve. People associate with Dr. Mahathir as someone who is a bit not too friendly, which is not actually true. He has strong views about some deals which he believed to be not either correct or we are not in the position to implement due to his costs. And as I usually joke, Singapore leaders are competent, smart, professional, but they're too serious at times. We tend to be a bit more, accommodative, among kawan, give and take lah, relax sikit lah, So we need to have a meeting of minds and to build trust. Is that really problematic? As KP said, no, not really. I don't believe so, because Dr. Mahathir's Prime Minister have encouraged ministers to come, and ministers from Singapore have gone. I mean, there's no country to my mind that you see such exchanges in the last 4 months as you find in Singapore. The perception in the media is something else, but I'm talking about the reality. The ministers exchange. Anwar has come here twice in a week. So, whether issues of yes, KP, I mean water. I mean, to a general Malaysian say, look, you take water from us, you go and process Singapore, blah blah blah, and you can sell us mahal, so we're not happy. I think there are issues. I'm not making it simple. Neither am I critical. I'm just saying there's general sentiments. But Singapore said we are doing a service. We are doing a service, and we are not making exorbitant profits because due to this. So I think to me it is not a problem that should cause tensions between two states. But there are issues that must be resolved as friends and as good neighbors in the interest of both nations. Arigato gozaimasu.
Here I am trying to be like hard talk, trying to put you under pressure and so on. And I think we can certainly recognize that you're a consummate politician in being able to get around it. Last time, the same question was asked by you at the Singapore Summit. And Dr. Anwar gave the same reply. And I took the initiative as a Singaporean to say that next time, all our ministers will promise that they can sing karaoke and they can also take it easy. I think what I'm going to have to do now, since you said let's have a good time, I have so many questions here before I open it to the floor, which are very serious questions. The one that I would like to ask you now, though, is the one it's this one. Very difficult question. Chicken rice belongs to Malaysia or Singapore? 70 votes. So quick on that one. Very political, you're going to upset a lot of people on both sides.
It's not a political answer. I'm giving an objective answer. Rice from Malaysia, no question. Chicken, both from Malaysia and Singapore.
Very good. Let me now leave it to the students to ask the more serious questions. Ladies and gentlemen, there are two mics on both sides. Please just come up if you'd like to ask a question. All I'd like to do is just ask you to state your name so that and anything you would like us to know about you. Try to make ask a question and not a very long commentary. Could I have this side, please?
Hi, good afternoon, Datuk Seri Anwar. I'm Wei Ching from SMU. I would like to ask you, what keeps you motivated to serve the nation despite the many personal tribulations that you have faced? Thank you.
Well, I believe in the cause. I quoted again Kennedy in his Profiles in Courage, where he referred to courage and conviction, tenacity of purpose. I would add compassion and forgiveness. But you believe in the cause. You want to do something good for the country. You know the state of education, health, poverty, inequality. You know the economy. We should be a more vibrant economy. We have the potential to propel the economy upwards. Why is this not happening? Why are leaders who talks about good governance, ridding the country of corruption, continue to squander wealth on the people? So this is the conviction that I have. This keeps me going. But it's also the youth. When I was given the chance to stay outside, knowing that I would be jailed when I was 2014, 2015, everybody knows. This matter of time, the moment Anwar goes back, the federal court will pronounce him guilty. Never mind the facts or the law. Is the judge and the prime minister. So, in fact, at that time, and this is the first time, SMU, I'm giving the rare honor to SMU to say this. In fact, a sitting judge, a federal court judge, told me, Anwar, my advice to you is stay put in London or States or Turkey or anywhere. Not Singapore, it's too close. And don't return, because I know for a fact that the federal court judges will convict you. Never mind the facts and the law. Be realistic, and you have suffered enough to stay outside. My friends overseas, Vice President Al Gore appealed to me, former President Habibie, many others. But my response is this: what about the young? Majority of the young Malaysians support me and the cause. If I stay, I choose, of course, comfortable life outside. Then they say, okay, he suffered. But what about us? Should we continue? If he cannot endure that, can we? So it is because of my trust in the spirit of the young people, young Malaysians, that finally compel me to return. And return to Malaysia, back to jail for 3.5 years. And the older you become, the more difficult it is. Jail in Malaysia is solitary confinement. It's a lock-up cell. You don't meet people. You have mosquitoes and cockroaches, but not people. And that's the whole day, the whole day's program. Of course, then, your friends happens to be books. I am fortunate that friends all over the world keep on sending books. I met BGU, Mr. George Yeo, who actually sent the book he autographed when I was in prison. And I said, thank you, because I was able to finish the book. If he sends me now, I'll take some months to complete it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Good afternoon, Datuk Seri Anwar. I'm Aaron, a Year 3 student from SMU. Some time ago, you were a university student like us, and also a passionate student activist. I would like to ask what advice you would have for students who wish to champion alternative views, but who are afraid of crossing boundaries of what is deemed acceptable for public discussion. Thank you.
You see, when you start to believe something, you cannot be inhibited by the so-called boundaries. Of course, you don't go kill people, of course, I'm not suggesting that. But expressing your views. You must have the courage to express your views in a forum, in an open forum. And of course, then if the Vice Chancellor decides to call you, say, hey, slow down, young man, you slow down a bit for a while. You must be smart. But otherwise, you tell him this is university. University is center of learning. And you are taught to love, is a love for scholarship. Not scholarship money, I mean scholarship in terms of scholarly pursuit in life. And no sage, no statesman, no educationist would suggest that no, we should control the environment, we should not allow for creative thinking. What is creative thinking? Creative thinking means the space must be given. Look at most of the developing countries, which is under authoritarian or dictatorial rule. Look at the end result of these universities. They are not able to excel precisely because there's so much of this inhibition. So my advice would be, of course, you have to study very hard. You make sure you excel your studies. That's number one. But secondly, you must also know that you study not just to become a successful professional or engineer or whatever. You must also aim to serve. After all, you are Singaporean or Malaysian or Chinese. It doesn't matter. You owe it to the community. And it is that conviction that must stay with you. I mean, there are values in life beyond just making money and enjoying yourselves. I mean, there are so many people who have been deprived, marginalized, oppressed here and elsewhere. And it is your duty as a student to take this up. That's why I made reference to this excellence without the soul. You can be an excellent institution, but you are soulless. Earlier on, I think about 30, 40 years ago, we have Ivan Illich talking about de-schooling society, talking about the sacred cow. You actually train people not to think and reflect, but just to understand, have adequate knowledge to succeed. But they're like a sacred cow. They don't think beyond their immediate interest. It doesn't matter whether there's gross injustice happening with the abject poverty in their backyard. It does not concern them. There is a failure of education. So please proceed, read, reflect, understand, and engage. Have this and for us in a multiracial, multicultural, multi-religious society, it's more important is to understand and appreciate. I'm a Muslim, I believe in Islam, I'm a practicing Muslim, but I learn that I need to not only tolerate, but know and understand and appreciate other cultures and religion, because they have contributed immensely in your success, to your success, together. There is no, therefore, I mean, to conclude, I would say this, that you must have that drive. Students must acquire knowledge, yes. Must excel in their studies, yes. But must also be able to understand that they must disseminate truth. They must have values. It is imbibing character, which the world tends to lack. Herman Khan in the 70s wrote about politicians and political leaders becoming uncharismatic, low moral profession because people don't trust what they say. They will preach anti-corruption drive and they squander at the same time. So it is important, therefore, to inculcate values and ethical principles. It's like macam kuliah agama pula. Thank you.
On the issue, I was going to ask you questions, but since you talked about youth and so on, there's an interesting question here, and that is, we all know that there's discussion in Malaysia today about lowering the voting age from 21 to 18. And the question here is, what do you think of that, and why would you want to propose that?
Lowering voting age predicated upon a free media, encouraging students to be free to reflect and interact. Why 18? Well, we can say why not 17, why not 19? But from 21, I think students who are 18 years old now can ask. I mean, I've gone to schools and talked to university students who are 18. They are sometimes smarter than those in the 50s. But more important, they're more idealistic, they're more principled. They hate corruption. If they're not careful, they'll be corrupt later, but it doesn't matter. I'm talking about at least they're that age. So it is our duty to encourage them to stay put. But certainly I have more trust in the aptitude, capacity of the young to reflect. And it is therefore important to me that these nations, because with this exposure, access to knowledge and information, and education opportunities, they must be given the opportunity. I am very much for the lowering of the voting age.
Thank you. Please.
Okay, hi, Salam Sejahtera, Datuk Seri Anwar. I'm Derivan Jie from Anglo-Chinese Junior College, and I'm a Malaysian as well. So I have two questions for you, sir. The first being that, knowing your stand on affirmative action policies in Malaysia, need-based versus race-based, what are your opinions on the direction of race-based politics in Malaysia, especially with PAS in the picture? My second question actually comes from our history teacher, who is a great fan of yours but isn't able to be here as he's stuck in lessons. So, your party is gifted with two of the brightest lights of Malaysia's political future, Rafizi Ramli and Azmin Ali. However, your party's internal elections is threatening to put them in opposite spectrums when what Malaysia needs is a coalition. How do you plan to unite them? Thank you so much.
First, affirmative action. Our position, economic view is clear. We must promote growth, which means Malaysia or any country must be attractive for foreign direct investments. We must make it efficient, cut the red tape, avoid or stop these excesses or corruption. That's one. Because if you do not prepare growth, and the economy is not vibrant, we can't be talking about affirmative action. You know, we tend to ridicule the socialists because they talk about equitable distribution, I mean the socialists claim that they will promote equity to spread the wealth of the country. My point is, you don't grow, what do you spread? You spread poverty. You want to spread wealth, which means you have to balance between economic achievements, more investments, but then the failure of capitalism is being attacked now, not only by Piketty on inequality, earlier on by Stiglitz, earlier on by Rawls, and before that by Galbraith. I mean, there are many political philosophers who talked about economic growth with equitable distribution of wealth. And this we term as affirmative action. Because look at Malaysia, the remote areas in Sarawak or in Kelantan, people are poor, dilapidated buildings, poor roads. So you can't be talking about meritocracy alone, ignoring the majority who are marginalized, the minority who are either the estate sector or the urban squatters. Malays, Bumiputras, Chinese or Indians. So that is why I'm suggesting that we must have that. Now, PAS takes a different view. They think that having an Islamic state will solve all the problems. They have never been engaged in any sort of a reasoned discourse on some of these issues. We had this problem in Terengganu, controlled by PAS, where there was public caning of two girls who were accused of being lesbians, which my view, as a Muslim, I've condemn this as unjust, and it cannot be condoned or tolerated. It does not mean that I support all the cause which goes against what is the norm in moral standards in a society, but to use crude, punitive method, to me, is not the way forward. Now, secondly, about the internal, this is the battle for the deputy presidency of the Justice Party, which I will assume the presidency in November. What is the problem? You have a democratic elections. There are two personalities. Both are smart, intelligent, good track record. Why is it going to divide the party? The only solution is to have no contest. Then I will follow the North Korean method. Now, if it is a democracy, you must tolerate differences. You must accept the fact that people will campaign. I'm going to Port Dickson. Oh, you say, oh, but Anwar is this, that. Why come? Some people say, why must you challenge? You should win uncontested. I mean, okay, but who am I to claim that I am the supremo that nobody can challenge? No, I welcome challenge, but that's it. I will have to appeal to the voters. Similarly, in the party, the vibrancy of the party, the democratic spirit is that they continue to enter the race, win the elections, but it is my duty then as president to bring them together and give a suitable role for a person who has been defeated in a party election, because after all, these are elections among the members of the family. But I know, because the media seems to be sort of, oh, in infection, Anwar is not able to control, Anwar has failed as a leadership because he is not able to. What the heck are these fellas talking about? How do I then use, I'll be talking about democracy and freedom and justice, and suddenly, no contest. I can't do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
my regards to your history teacher.
Thank you. Hido Informasi.
I'll take two more questions from this side, because there's more people there. They've been queuing longer than your side. Okay, please.
Good afternoon, Datuk Anwar. So I'm Angeline, and I'm from NUS, a year 3 political science student. And I have two questions for you. And the first question is, why did PKR not win in 2013? So it's a question that me and my friends have been very interested in finding out, because of the department that we are from. And the second question is, what do you think changed in between 2013 to 2018 that allowed PKR to win? So we find it very heartwarming to observe that there's so much trust within Malaysians during the election period in 2018 that strangers are willing to share vehicles just to go to the voting stand. So we're wondering whether is this part of the reason of what are the factors that are driving this change in Malaysia? And yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Now, we won in 2013. we we garnered, firstly, 52% of the popular vote in elections without a free media, with independence of the election commission compromised. And I would say this, that had the elections been free and fair, I would have been Prime Minister in 2013. But anyway, when I said, okay, I had managed to read more books. After that, you see, I had 3.5 years, revised balik, baca balik, all the classics. And then, so it's okay. But in 2018, things, there was an opening. Tun Mahathir decided that enough is enough. He thinks that there's no future for Malaysia under the old regime. So he said, we should then work together. And precisely we did that. And we garnered somewhat in total about the same number of votes, but we managed to secure a victory from the other marginal seats. So here we are now. So that's why we won in 2018, although we won in 2013, but we didn't form the government. There's a difference. We won, but we did not form the government. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This side, please.
Good afternoon, Datuk Seri Anwar. My name is Jonathan. I'm a recent postgraduate from SMU. So I have two simple questions. The first question is, what is your personal mantra in life? And the second question is there anything or any issues that keep you up at night?
Sorry, personal?
Mantra.
Oh.
M-A-N-T-R-A.
Second question?
Is there any issues that keep you up at night?
First question, mantra ni. I don't know. Not really, nothing specific really, I can't recall. But what keep me awake at night is Aziza. If she does not bother me, I'll be asleep. She wouldn't like that answer. Please don't tell her that.
Thank you.
Please.
Good afternoon, Datuk Anwar. I'm Kaiser. I'm a year 4 student from Hwa Chong International, and I have 2 questions for you. Firstly, I would like to ask you, what makes a good leader, especially one that's facing opposition? And secondly, what do you feel their priorities should be? Thank you.
No, a good leader is for the society, the community to judge or assess. But what is very important, good leader must have principles, must have values, must have character, must prepare, imbibe himself or herself in some knowledge on the issues. Because people can assess after some time how mediocre one is or not. So you have to work essentially harder than your followers. You have to know more. And it was very challenging. I mean, for me, coming out of prison and looking at all the new gadgets and telephone, my God. It's 3.5 years, so many things have changed. But worse was in the first 6 years. The first years when I came back, I went to, when my son, this bulan puasa, with the sarung and Malay baju, he said, Papa, you want to have a drink? I said, okay. We went to Coffee Bean or something. It was the first time I'm going to Coffee Bean. Because before I was arrested, there was no Coffee Bean. So I went in, they were looking, they know me with that sort of dress. Then they asked, to see nak apa? I said, teh ada teh. That fellow was stunned looking at me. And my son said, please, Papa, don't embarrass me. I said, what's wrong? This is Coffee Bean. Oh, okay. They said, no, I have my tea, my personal tea. I will prepare for you. But so what I'm saying is, you have this humility to know that things change, you have to learn, you have to understand new issues, that's one. But more important to my mind is issue of character. You have to believe in the cause, and you must have certain fundamental values. Because leaders they may not be corrupt, they may be so arrogant. They may not be, again, abusing their power, but they just not ready to listen to any other view. They think they are the experts, they know exactly what's going to happen. That's why all these sometimes predictions are wrong. Look at predictions about Malaysia. Because we know, we know. We met these few fellows, this is going to happen this way, this fellow is going to win. And, there's no humility at all to understand and appreciate that people think sometimes differently. And there is what we term, I believe, in the wisdom of the masses. This great Spanish philosopher, Ortega y Gasset, Rebelión de las Masas. In the Spanish original, the translation is the revolt of the masses. He's not talking about the revolution. He's talking about the thinking, the aspirations, the cultural trait of the masses that sometimes are ignored by the elites, thinking that they know everything. They can predict the future for certain. And so I think, other than what I've said, which I'm sure you have many management gurus who talk about leadership in a more profound manner than I can, but then I would certainly put this issue of humility, compassion, because these are human values. They're sometimes lacking. You go on a rigid structural analysis of people and personalities, you tend to forget that we are dealing with human beings. Okay? Now, priorities. It depends. You're a student leader, the priority is different. You're a government leader of a government, so you have to look at what are the priorities, what are the critical issues you have to deal with, and if you are in a civil society, in the same manner. So I can't generalize, but what is important is to understand, to listen, to have the humility, and to continue to have these core principles and values, which unfortunately is terribly lacking in leadership. You know, that's why you can have people who doesn't care, and people who just don't care what happens. You can declare a trade war, it doesn't matter whether it affects or not, you can just decide on an issue. This is, to my mind, a major flaw in leadership. Terima kasih.
Thank you.
Please.
Salam Datuk Anwar. I'm Muhammad from SMU. I'm a year 1 student. And my question is actually about the ties of kinship, a special cause for us to get behind for the betterment of Singapore-Malaysia relationships. I believe that ties of kinship is a special cause which older generation, Singaporeans and Malaysians, could themselves identify with. But as the younger generation grows, with societies going trajectory different, how would you advise the younger generation to appreciate these ties of kinship? And I would say from personal experience, especially talking to younger people and people around my generation, we tend to take Singapore-Malaysia relationships more transactional, more like, do I benefit from this, as opposed from the bigger cause of kinship. And there's another question though. I've been following you since I was really young, watching the news. Can I take a selfie with you later?
No, you're right. In Singapore-Malaysia relations, as I say, people can say problematic if you identify issues, but you are right. You know, finally, it has to be as people to people, civil society, students, the interaction. I grew up from my varsity days, because I have distant family members here, but we don't, of course, get to know them that well. But we interact from university days. Zainal here, Zainal Abidin, from University of Singapore those days, and we interact and became friends for decades. And I think this is important. It's not just getting to know, but interact in a closer manner, because it is not the same as other countries. I mean, to me, I don't know, I'm a bit sentimental about it, but I think more needs to be done on an interpersonal level beyond the structured context or government to government sort of relations. Selfie, okay, $10. Go for it. No, I'm joking. Okay, we'll do it.
I think you have to queue up afterwards. Can I go to this side, please?
Selamat sejahtera, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim. I am a Malaysian Chinese, right? And
Are you sure?
Yes, I can prove it. I have a pin. Under here, I'm wearing an undershirt that says "Sila duduk, jangan lari." I can show it to you if you like. Anyway, so my family members have, and many of my friends have repeatedly told me, why do you want to return to Malaysia? Why not stay in Singapore? Why do you want to pursue a political career? Why not just do business somewhere in Australia or the UK or anything? And my key question here is that I would like to ask, what will you do to ensure political equality in Malaysia? Not just between the races, but in general.
That is in our platform. We can't renege on that. We want on that platform. This does not mean that we're going to marginalize the Malays who are a bit concerned that this new change will then put them on different or disadvantage. It's not true, because I'm saying that that equality means everybody, of course, everyone has their right, the same right, but then it must not be deemed to be in any way discriminatory. Sometimes it is also exaggerated, and I think it's to be fair for you Singaporeans also to understand, because they say, well, this is a Malay government, everything goes to the Malays. It's not true also, because the vast majority of the Malays and the Bumiputras are still, relatively poorer and marginalized in the rural heartland. But once you introduce any policy that's deemed to be discriminatory, even if affecting a few, is not something that we can defend in these days and age. For me, as a matter of principle, it is wrong. That's why, and as far back as 2007, I proposed that the new economic policy be dismantled. Now, was it easy? No, because many of my Malay friends were upset because they think that I don't care enough for the Malay welfare, because that would put them in a disadvantage. They may not be able to compete. I said no, because if your policy is to promote and have affirmative action, so you will have to continue to protect the poor, the marginalized, the difference being it is not race-based but need-based. So, welcome back.
Terima kasih, Datuk Seri.
In the interest of time, because I think it'd be good that everyone have a chance to ask their question, could I ask yourself and the person after you to ask at the same time, and then we can have the answer, and then yourself and the next one can ask at the same time. Okay, so your side, please.
All right. Good evening, Datuk Seri Anwar. As a leader and a political figure, I wanted to ask, do you believe that there is a point where you must sacrifice, call it the comfort of the people, in order to benefit the country forward?
Yes, one more.
Hi, good afternoon, Datuk Anwar. I'm Ian from TJC, Temasek Junior College. I'd like to ask, in view of what's happened in Malaysia recently, and considering that the PAP has actually dominated Singapore's political scene almost since its birth, I'd like to ask, what will it take for political reform to happen in Singapore? And do you think Singapore is ready for political reform?
Wow.
Oh.
I hope I don't get arrested.
No, I can guarantee you. Give me your name. I will speak to the authorities if we have problems. Okay. Well, it's getting more. Now, it's true. I mean, sacrifice. Of course, for a country to perform, everyone has to sacrifice. But the problem is that leaders will ask their followers and the people to sacrifice. Sugar price increase. Please sacrifice, take less sugar. Okay, it sounds okay. But people will ask, is the contract transparent? Was there competitive bidding? If all that's done, then fair. You can ask the sacrifice of the people. You see, in the period we were struggling for independence, people just sacrifice. I mean, as I said, I'm a student of history. I mean, amazing. People come in thousands, by the thousands, poor guys, helping out. And it must touch the passion, the feeling. Anyone who observes that. Let me share with you one experience. I was campaigning, 2008. I went precisely to Port Dickson. I will tell you this. And then going on stage, of course, normally I have 3-4 speeches one night, so 20 minutes, you rush. You got the pen, and then one, like a Haji, shabbily dressed, white, clean, just gave me an envelope, say, it's for you, please, it's from me. So I say, okay, I think probably a letter, application, the daughter's problems, or in education, whatever. So I sat down and then opened. It's 1,000 ringgit. So I regretted. I said, I cannot take from this man 1,000 ringgit, but I don't know who gave it to me. You see? So to him, it's a sacrifice because there is hope. He's hoping that his children or the future of the country can be saved. But if people like me is not affected, then I'm just a rotten guy. I don't deserve to lead. So you want people to sacrifice for the nation, yes, but you must start. The leaders must set the example. Leaders cannot live in such opulence with all the diamonds in the world and then talk, please sacrifice for the sake of the country. And then you have all this diamonds studded. So it is sheer hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy. You can't. You do that. I mean, so many so-called banana republic. I'm astounded. I used to be president of the UNESCO General Conference. So naturally, leaders would come. And Malaysia was relatively doing well. Everybody asking for money to build schools. Schools in the remote areas of Africa would cost only $40,000. Okay? So you can say, we need 10 schools, if Malaysia can help. I'm, of course, sympathetic. But I saw this Rolex diamond watch and this expensive necklace. I said, why don't you go and sell your necklace and build a school? I didn't say that, you see. But I just thought to myself, this means hypocrisy. And you stay in a huge royal presidential suite in the corner. And why did I stay? I stayed in a flat hotel. Flat hotel, which is relatively cheaper because I don't want the government to pay because I was president of UNESCO. I had to stay there 1 month, 2 months in a row. I mean, you have to have such a feeling. You see, leaders, sometimes they forget. So I'm not ridiculing the African ministers, please. We have a problem, diplomatic problem. But what I'm saying is, you can ask people to sacrifice. It's legitimate. But you must start with the leaders. When the leaders squander from the country and show such opulence and extravagance, they cannot expect poor guys to sacrifice. And the second issue, let me see. Now, political reform. I think to be fair and more objective, the Singapore issue or problem certainly cannot be compared to the fiasco in Malaysia. Nobody talks about endemic corruption or discrimination as you see it here. But whether they should move on for a more vibrant democratic reform, that's for the Singaporeans to decide. Okay? But to compare with Malaysia, I think it is not right because we were in a stage which, if not handled or change not affected in the last elections, we certainly just go down the drain. Okay, I think, is that a fair answer?
Thank you. Thank you. We're coming to the end, but I think what I'd like to do then, if you permit, is I'll ask all those who are still there, one by one, all of you, ask your questions clearly, shortly, and then Datuk Seri Anwar can decide which ones you want to answer, or you group them together if they're of a general kind. But at least that way we get all the young people here to be able to have expressed their thoughts or at least their questions. So why don't each one of you ask your question one after the other, and then this side, and ask it simply, short and sharp. Please.
Good afternoon, Datuk Seri Anwar. My name is Benjamin. I'm a student from NUS. And my question is basically this. Given the numerous claims and criticisms leveled at the state of the Malaysian judiciary, and as a person who has always stressed the need for the rule of law to be maintained, what concrete measures and steps do you believe ought to be implemented, or at least you would implement, to restore public confidence in the Malaysian judiciary? That's my
Thank
question.
you. Next one, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Jae Hong from Raffles Institution. I have two questions here. Firstly, I just want to harken back to race-based politics. I think the key question here is it's not just about policies like the NEP, but it's more of the psyche of the Malaysian people, that it's not just Malays, but I think Chinese as well. There's that kind of harboring of a certain sense that they should be protective for their race or what they have claims for.
Could you just ask the question, because there's quite a number of you.
Apologies. So the question is, then when can we move on from that, and how can the youth then enable that? And the second question is, mind me for asking, it's a personal question, but for me, GE14 was very poignant because there was a video of you in your hospital ward watching Mahathir's inauguration. So for me, that was really touching because I could see you really expressing the kind of emotion. So I just want to ask, what was going through your mind then? And yeah, just to elaborate on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Datuk Anwar. My name is Perry and I'm from SGI International. You've spoken about the need for democracy and freedom in Malaysia and elsewhere. My question is, are there certain circumstances in which authoritarian control might be necessary?
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Datuk Seri Anwar. You spoke of disagreeing with punitive measures and the importance of upholding human rights. I was just wondering what you intend to do about the problem of child brides in Kelantan, as well as whether, after you become Prime Minister, you intend to keep Lim Guan Eng as Finance Minister. Thank you.
Very broad and extremely specific. Please.
Good afternoon, Datuk Seri Anwar. I am Saran Raj from Pioneer Junior College. So you spoke much about compassion and liberal thinking. And based on your speech, I understand that the resistance to compassion and liberal thinking is insecurity and ignorance. And it's when people in power act on these insecurities that we see things like genocide, protectionism, and even political imprisonment. So how do we bring about a more liberal thinking and compassion to deter insecurity, not just in the youth, but also among the elites of today? Thank you.
Thank you. Next one.
Hi, good afternoon, Datuk Seri Anwar. I'm Gladys, a Year 4 SMU student. My question is, domestically, what is the top of your list of priorities when you're formally elected as Malaysia's Prime Minister? Thank you.
Last one, please.
Good evening, Datuk. My name is Dheeraj. I'm a final year student at the School of Law. I have two questions if I can ask them. The first question is, given the US's current measures against the Palestinian National Authority, what role do you think Singapore and Malaysia can play in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, given Singapore's good ties with Israel and Malaysia's good ties with the Palestinian National Authority? My second question is, how would you respond to criticism that your manner of potentially being elected is through a by-election which has been intentionally triggered, given that this was also done in 2008 when Madam Aziza stepped down? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's a whole lot of questions there. I guess you decide. There was one question actually I wanted to pull out here to ask you, but I won't add to the pain that you're going to have. The question here really, and I kid you not, it says, what do you have for breakfast every day? so you can ignore that, but would you like to answer to the rest of these?
Dates and honey.
Okay.
Now, first question, NUS, judiciary, it takes time. You see, judiciary, once it's compromised, we have a problem. You have to retrain, you have to make sure that the selection process is more transparent, more competent people, and with impeccable credentials, which is not easy to find if you do not have that tradition. So you have to have years before you could effect change. But for now, at least they know that the judiciary must be competent, must act independently, must not be corrupt. That is, to me, the first radical measure. Now, the race and the issue of psyche, yeah, you're right. It's not just a policy. It affects all races. When you talk to the Malays, they say, yeah, you talk about NEP, you get them to criticize. But you go to a Chinese company, they will never employ any Malays. Yeah, and then the Indians, so the same issue is going to be raised. So to my mind, to create this awareness is important. So you must have, I would have, envisioned a country where Malaysia, where, like in our party, where president can be a Malay, vice president can be an Indian, some Dayak, and then treasurer normally Chinese, we have more money. So you have actually this mixed sort of relations. So you have a party, you can't be talking about Malay alone or Chinese or Islam, because then it is a multiracial party. We debate it out. I mentioned your foreign minister during lunch today about this, how we crafted the whole article while responding to the Hudud bill proposed by PAS. It's well crafted and is discussed by the Muslims and the non-Muslims alike in the party. I don't have time to explain that, but to me it's important, based on the Indonesian experience. Sukarno actually agreed on this term Sharia because of the clamor and the demand at that time. Then the minorities, the Christians, the Hindus and the Buddhists, then came up to Hatta, the vice president or vice president designate at that time, to say, look, you want independence, fair enough, but we will not join you. We'll go independent our way through some arrangement with the Dutch. Then Hatta said, why? Because we are scared. You guys may impose Islamic rule. But Hatta said, that's not the intention. They said, never mind the intention, but the mere fact that you place that in the constitution will scare us. So finally, Sukarno has to cancel that 7 words, which specifically stated that Islam, Sharia will be implemented in due course. You see, it is important. So I shared it in Parliament. I actually crafted part of it from prison, and Azizah issued it after leaders added on and edited it, to say that if you impose forcibly, then we have Sarawak, majority non-Muslims, Penang, majority non-Muslims, they have an option. Do we want to save the country, or are we obsessed with some aspects of Islamic law? Then we discuss, is this what Islam wants? Is this the correct interpretation of Islam? We said no. So that's what I mean by this issue of psyche, which need to be discussed and deliberated at length and with trust. Now, watching TV the night, I was in prison, technically I was in the hospital, and Mahathir swearing in. What did I feel? You want me to be honest or politically correct? Politically correct, of course, I rejoiced. Everybody was there, was so elated. Look, Mahathir swearing in, this is a new era for Malaysia, and he came out with a statement that once Pakatan Harapan wins, Anwar will be given, they would then submit this application to the king for immediate pardon. So, okay. And then, but I also feel, I should have been there, I did. I don't want to lie to you. I did think about it. It should be me, not you. Now, freedom and democracy, whether given certain circumstances, you need an authoritarian leadership. It's not authoritarian leadership. For example, the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln declared writ of habeas corpus. They denied the writ of habeas corpus, which means you actually deny due process. But there was civil war. You see? It is dangerous to use this because governments will only say, no, there's insecurity, other bombing somewhere, therefore, that is the danger. I don't believe that should be a basis, except under such circumstances. There was a major civil strife or whatever, a major terrorist attack, then you declare temporarily a state of emergency, which means some sort of, not dictatorial, but you suspend civil liberties. Kelantan child marriage, of course, we do not accept. This is a law that is in Kelantan. So Azizah is in a very difficult predicament because the law is there. So people want to condemn. You disagree with the law, but the law is a state law. It's a state law under the state authority of the state. Do I agree? No. But what do? We have to do some other process. There's nothing we can do technically. Then they get angry. Then what are you in the government for? You can't do anything. I mean, the government is a federal government. There's a state legislation. So there must be a process. There's mounting criticism. There's mounting protests and through the media to try and change that. Whether I will keep Guan Eng as finance minister. Why do you ask, would I keep Aziza as deputy prime minister? You see, you don't care about what happens to Aziza. But I have said that the day I assume office as prime minister, Aziza will of course resign, will quit and will not serve the government. It's enough for her to be the very, what do you do? I don't use the first lady, you know. Wife of the prime minister, who has enough responsibility, you know. And she doesn't want to be a first lady, thank God. So, first, make me a prime minister first, lah. You eat that, so you settle one at a time, okay? Now, you say that people don't have compassion because there is no security. Yeah, partly maybe. No security, why? Because you are corrupt, you are arrogant, you are cruel. Because if you're not corrupt, you're not arrogant, you're not cruel, why can't you have compassion? You are a human being. So if a person is insecure, then he should not be given the support to lead in any society, company, or even country. You are just insecure. How can you control? How can you lead? SPM, what do I need to do? I work. I'll work hard. And I've mentioned what I need to do, the priorities of the economy, getting the country together. I have great dreams of Malaysia. You know, that's why I said I want to be a great friend of Singapore, our neighbors, Indonesia, so that we can, you know, utilize each other's strength to help one another and propel the economy. Because at least in the 90s, we were all doing well together, much better than now. And I think we should not only repeat or follow that tradition, but do more than what we did before. The Raj, Singapore-Malaysia on Israel and PND. Look, it's not issue of pro-Palestine or anti-Israel. The issue to me, as Edward Said has explained, is issue of dispossession. It's politics of dispossession. You see, you have taken people's property and land, and you can't ensure peace to be achieved. You completely ignore that. If it is a security issue, yes, you can deal with it. We must be firm. I mean, if you say there's a propensity of violence, but then you can't be talking about peace every time you take over lands by the thousands of acres. And it's condoned. It's condoned by the regimes. I fail to understand, frankly. I'm not taking an extreme view to the extent that I refuse to have any deals with the Jews. I had got into lots of trouble when I said I agree that the security of the state of Israel need to be also protected. For that, I was abused in every single village by UMNO, saying that I am pro-Jew. See? But having said that, I said, then how do you then consider the plight, the inhuman treatment of this biggest open prison or ghetto in the world is tolerated? Don't we have any sense of feelings because they happen to be Arabs or Palestinians? No, I think there must be some sense in our political leadership. They can choose to support whoever they want to, but they cannot condone, allow this sort of oppression to take place. That is my view, although I realize this is a very complex issue. And people are, how do a normal Muslim believe that the international system or order or the United States to be fair? They understand that America is pro-Israel, okay, fair. Trade with Israel, fair. Give 10 billion to Israel and 100 million to Palestine, even then with 101 conditions, okay, fair. But to allow people to just continue to steal their land and plunder, this is completely inhuman and unacceptable to my mind. This is my position on this very contentious issue. You ask me what is the solution, I would concede there is not an easy solution. I'm for peace, but I do not condone violence, neither would I be silent on the clear atrocities and plundering of land owned by other people, just because in the name of security and safety, we have to take part of your land. And then next year, in the name of further security, we take another. And this continue. And the international community seems to be just helpless in dealing with the situation. And I used to teach at Georgetown University, and I, series of lectures in universities, in Stanford and Harvard especially. And I realized that sometimes, except for the students and the academic community, the rest are so divided. You can't mention some sort of any sympathy. Oh, if it's you plunder land, no, there's no issue of land being plundered. They deserve to be treated that way because they are all violent, they have violent streak. It is in their DNA, the president. I apologize, I do not share this. And I fail to understand why human beings can emerge and be so self-righteous and confident in denying the right of what I consider something legitimate, because the issue of Palestine finally, as explained, articulated by Edward Said, is politics of dispossession. Terima kasih banyak.
Thank you for that very, very eloquent final remarks. In closing, I think I only need to say that we've had so many, we've up to 10 global leaders here speaking to us as a part of this lecture series, as many of my colleagues will attest to. We've had many people expound their policies and what they want to do and so on. But I really have to say, as the person who's been here for every one of these, we really haven't had such an extraordinary afternoon as today, where you showed us that leadership, as you yourself have said, is not just about policies. It's about character, it's about compassion, humility, the values that you have. And I think, although you very skillfully bypassed any policies, because as you've said, you're not Prime Minister yet, I think you gave us a very privileged insight into who you are as a person. It's very rare, I think, that in a hall of 1,000 over people, everybody here got to feel you as a person in the authenticity of your answers, your engaging with people, the candor with which you speak. So on behalf of all of us, I really would like to thank you so much for giving us your time. And can I ask all of you to join me?
All right, thank you, Datuk Seri Anwar, and thank you, Chairman. May I ask that you remain on stage? For our earlier friend, thank you for requesting for a selfie, but you have unknowingly caused an exponential spike in demand for selfies. So instead of selfies, we will do a Wi-Fi this time, all right? So I'll need you guys to stand over here, Datuk Anwar on my right, and Chairman on my left. And I need all of the audience members to stand and try and get in the picture if you can, all right? We will be doing a Wi-Fi, which the camera is going to be this direction, and we're going to try to get everyone in the photo. So guys, stand up and try to squeeze as much as possible. We will try our best to fit everyone in the photo, okay? All right, and we will have two photographers, so we will be taking 2 photos, okay? So when you guys are ready, I want you guys, we have talked a lot about Singapore and Malaysia, but we all share a love for chicken rice. So on my count of 3, I want all of us to say chicken rice instead of cheese, all right? Okay? Okay, we'll try one. All right, 3, 2, 1, chicken rice. Okay, we have another one. All right, in 3, 2, 1, chicken rice. Oh, we have more. Okay, one last one. All right. Okay, 3, 2, 1, chicken rice. Okay, we are definitely eating some chicken rice tonight. Thank you so much, Datuk Anwar, and thank you so much, Chairman. For the rest of our audience members, may I ask that you please remain seated